Hello! A fairly common use case in mWater is to want to take the data that you have collected in our platform and bring it over into some other analytics platform such as Microsoft's Power BI or Google's Google Sheets. In this video, we will follow the API quickstart guide we've created to show how this can be done quickly and easily. So, let's begin. We will be referring to the API guide that you can find in our resource center. Here I am in the mWater portal. I'll go to the Help Center, the Resource Center, and look for the API Quickstart, which is a page and so of instructions. And the basic idea with the quickest possible link between mWater and another system is to use our datagrids feature, create a datagrid that contains the rows and columns of data that you want to bring into another system, save it by giving it a name, and then use the API call that the system already generates when you download a CSV file. We'll see how you can grab onto this API call and put it into Power BI and Google Sheets. So let's follow along. Let's create a data grid with your chosen columns and filters. So I will, here in the portal, go and create a data grid. Let's say I want to just display some information about water points that I control. So I'm creating a table with the name, unique ID, and perhaps type of water point that I then filter down to ones, let's say managed by my user account directly in this example case. But the point here is that you create a data grid with those columns and those rows that you want to bring over, and it's always going to be the latest reality that your user account is able to see. I'll call this my water points. So now we have our data structure, what we want to take into another system. So what do we do next? Referring back to the guide, we download the CSV of the data grid and take the URL which appears in the browser briefly, and also in the network traffic. So here we can use a browser feature. I'm now in Chrome. I'll go to More Tools and open Developer Tools. I can use Control-Shift-I as well. This opens a whole host of different behind-the-scenes tools you can use in browsers. I want to be looking at the Network tab. So I open my Developer Tools and I look at the Network tab. Now if I choose to download my file as CSV, my data grid, I'll see that there is this URL that flashes in my navbar. But that might go by really quickly. So what you can do is look at this API traffic, this network traffic, and see that this URL request is also here. So this is effectively the command needed to get this data grid. Now notice that this URL call has a couple of unique IDs, the ID of the data grid, and then your client ID. I'm just using a dummy client ID for this demonstration, but please take great care in not sharing your client ID. It is equivalent to sharing your password. Anybody with your client ID would in theory be able to access our API with the permission rights that your account has. Client IDs get regenerated when you log out and log in again, but please take care. So I will take this URL request. Now I have it. I'll then go to Power BI and start a new blank report and start bringing in the data into Power BI. I will use the Get Data option. And which option are we using? Well, we're bringing the data from the web, the mWater API. And here it's very simple. All we need to do is paste our URL to the basic option and make one change. We want to add the download keyword into the right part of our call here. So if we look at the guide, we'll see that we want to add the keyword download before the client ID parameter to form an API call that returns a CSV file of the data grid, which is easy to digest in Power BI. So we'll be adding the word download after the / here. back in Power BI, let's do that. Just /download, and it'll continue with what you had, $client and then the client ID. Now, if I did that correctly, it's going to be calling the mWater API. It's going to have the right password in the sense of having an active and correct client ID. And it's going to return the contents of my data grid. So now, every time I refresh this Power BI data source, it's going to bring the latest reality of that data grid. So very, very quick and easy way to bring data through. Whilst we're at it, I'll also show how quick and easy it is to bring data from mWater and Solstice into Google Sheets. But the principle is very much the same. We have our data grid, and we will go now into Google Sheets. Let's call it mWater points. And what we want to do is go to Extensions and choose Apps Script. In the app script, we'll use the URL request, but we also have in our guide a suggested function that allows you to just parse a CSV as you import it in. So this is the view in the Google Sheets apps script. I'll call that mWater points import, and just replace the existing function by copy pasting from the guide. So it creates a new function called import CSV from mWater, and everything else we can leave as it is, except we need to get our API call into these single quotes here. So again, as long as I have that somewhere to pick it out in the browser network traffic here, I can paste it, make sure it's on one row, and let's do the same trick as before. Add the download keyword so that instead of a JavaScript object notation file, JSON file, we get a CSV with this download keyword. So now we can save the project to Drive and make sure it's got the right permissions. Here it may, when we try and run it, it may ask us for authorization depending on what you've done in Google Sheets before. We review permissions, and here we can choose the account to authorize, and it's going to say, okay, I need to see and edit Google things, so this allows this connection to happen. This is the project that I've created, so yes, I do trust it. With the right authorization, it should say that the execution of the script has started. And if I see the execution is completed, I can jump back into my Google Sheet and see that it's brought in the data from the data grid. So there we have it. The fundamental way to quickly bring data from any data source that you have access to by using a data grid and bringing it into another system with a couple of examples. Now, we do have fuller API documentation that you can view at api.mwater.co that you can look at if you have the technical chops, if you're a programmer. So go take a look. Also review our fair use policy, and the principles here can be applied to basically any data that you have in mWater. It doesn't describe every possible API call, but if you understand the structure, then you can start crafting your own more detailed integrations as needed. And following our policies. If you get stuck with the basic API integration, please feel free to reach out to us at info@mwater.co or problems@mwater.co. Send any feedback, and hopefully you're enjoying using our platform. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.